Welcome to Profit First Beyond the Book, a podcast that takes you beyond the book with Profit First, brought to you by Tim, Duncan and the rest of the Profit First Professionals UK and Ireland team. And with me this week, once again, is my good friend and colleague, Jason Withers. Welcome, Jason.
Good morning, Tim. How are you?
And so today, I'm very well, thank you, very well. So Jason, today we're going to talk about something we've been doing within the Profit First pathway, which we've named Diary of a PFP. Now, where this has come from is that we wanted to share some of the things we do with our members on a Monday. So Monday is our, should we call it a Members' Day? Is that a good thing to perhaps label it? Where we have calls with our Profit First professional members throughout the day. And they're in different types of calls. So as it stands right now, at 10 o'clock, we have a call with our certification cohort. At 11 o'clock, we have a call with our post-certification cohorts. That's people who have become certified, looking to make the next steps with using their certification, bringing on new clients, working with the Profit First advisory strategies with their clients and making a real impact, you know, in their clients' world and their clients' businesses, as well as continuing their own journey with Profit First, of course. And then at lunchtime, we have our Profit First Power Hour, as we call it now, which is the call for all of the community. All of the members are invited along to that call. Now, things might be changing in the new year, but the core and the idea of these scheduling calls will be similar. So the names might change, but the setup will be very similar, whereas we have people in certification, people in post-certification, and all our members coming together as well. So what we've started doing is on a Monday afternoon, because we've had all of these calls with our members, myself and Jason, and sometimes Deb Halliday's joined us as well, have done a brief overview of what's happened on those calls, the topics we've discussed. And so we've done some short videos talking about this. We've called it Diary of a PFP, and we've dropped it into the Profit First Pathway Facebook group. So the people in the Facebook group are able to have an insight into what's going on in our world and what we discuss with our members. So the next step from that was we thought, hey, this would make a great episode for our podcast. So Profit First Beyond the Book and Diary of a PFP Part 1. So this is kind of going to summarize a lot of the topics we've talked about over the last month in the Profit First pathway, but mainly with our members. So Jason, we're gonna start with there's lots of things we've talked about, of course, because we're talking about 5 Mondays where we've actually worked with our members that these videos have started from. One of the things I want to talk about initially, because this podcast is Profit First Beyond the Book, so we're going to talk about a couple of Beyond the Book Profit First tips that come to light throughout these calls, things that we do talk about quite a lot with our members, but there was 2 particular things that stood out for me when I looked back at all of the videos. One of them is a fantastic tip that you came up with last week, actually, and I'd like you to share that, which was one of the what we call special purpose pot, but I'm not going to grab the glory from it. I'm going to let you explain. So if you're happy to share what you came up with, I think this would be great for our audience to hear.
For sure. I think we use special purpose accounts quite a lot. I certainly do with my clients, beyond the core accounts that we read about in the book. Really to deal with some very specific circumstances as they arise from time to time. You know, typical examples that people use: getting a holiday pot together, maybe a team training pot, those kind of things, personal development pot. They sit outside of the core accounts, but they have a very specific purpose attached to them. So last Friday, this is clearly going to be a very time-bound scenario, for what it's worth. So we're almost a week on from Black Friday 2025 here. So back end of last week, I'm sat there and, you know, the emails are coming through, Black Friday this, Black Friday that. And as always is the case, yes, there are things I want to buy or take advantage of pricing for both business and personal things. So, you know, going through the process, and normally my technique is I will either use a surplus in my OPEX account, or maybe I'll draw something from my profit account to handle some of these things at a moment in time. And I suddenly found myself thinking this would be perfect for a special purpose account, actually, to start building up the funds throughout the year so that by the time you get into that Black Friday, Cyber Monday kind of moment in time, we're not really thinking about where am I taking the money from? The money's already sat there, but also it is doing the job of giving us some boundaries. You know, it is helping us contain that spend as well. So I sort of found myself going through it and thinking, when we're through and out the other side and there are no more deals to be had, to actually go back, find out how much I did actually spend, and then think about what would I have needed to have allocated on a weekly, monthly basis. What would that cumulative number need to be? And actually, as I go into 2026, start actually allocating money every time I allocate into a Black Friday pot. I've got no idea what I might want to buy in a year's time, but I don't have to know now. What I do need to know is there are funds that have been built up for a specific purpose, and if the right things appear at the right time, the money is there, non-emotional decision, just jump in, buy the thing, you know it's covered off. So I think that also taps into one of the ideas. I mean, much like you, Tim, we've been Profit First professionals for 6, 7, 8 years now. And yet all of a sudden, here is a new application of something that I actually use all the time with clients and have done for years on end. So I think one of the aspects that comes up is people think, oh, it's the 5 core accounts. That's it. I'm doing some allocations. That's the end of the story. That's all I need to do. And the point actually is we are all learning all the time about how to leverage the system and get the most out of the system through all sorts of different aspects in that way. And this is just one that has come at a moment in time, you know, to me, right in the moment in the last week. So yeah, I'm kind of looking at it as okay, don't allocate in November necessarily, give December a miss, but maybe actually make it almost like a 10-month thing. So the allocations run January through to October. The money's there ready to go by the time Black Friday, Cyber Monday comes around. So yes, it'll be interesting to see how those percentages actually drop out, probably more than I'd like them to be, I suspect, but hey, that's life, isn't it? And therein lies part of the aspect of control, and then thinking about how I plan my own year to get enough money in a pot for it to be, you know, give some room in order to think about getting hold of some different things at a point in time.
Yeah, and I think Black Friday is a classic example of where we would make an impulse buy. We would see something, think, blimey, that's a lot cheaper than what I was looking at earlier in the year. I've just got to buy it. So we get tempted in to the marketing aspect of what Black Friday is, and we make the purchase. But actually, by flipping it around, which is what you're saying, and actually putting some money aside for Black Friday in a special purpose pot over a period of 10 months, it doesn't matter then. If you do see that opportunity to buy something, it's going to really benefit you because you know you want this thing, but you've been monitoring the price perhaps throughout the year because you're being proactive now as opposed to the impulse when it just comes up. And you're thinking, okay, I've got my eye on this. I'm going to keep my eye on this. I'm going to watch it. Boom, money's in the pot. I can buy that. It's a lot less than what I thought I was going to spend. Now I've got some money left in the pot and I can decide what to do with that moving forward. And that kind of... Sorry, I think you're going to jump in and say something else. So I'm going to let you speak before I go on to the next stage.
No, I was just going to say, and I think for me, we talked about it on our, I can't think if it was the 11 o'clock or the community call now, just as an idea for members to think about. Here we are, we're all business people. We all, sort of lean on each other periodically as well as a community. But we all know we're going to get faced with clients who roll up to calls in December who say, yeah, I actually bought this thing over here. Yes, I did some Black Friday stuff. Yes, I took advantage of that. Can you now help me reverse engineer money, my pots, my structure to be able to deal with that, as you say, that impulse sort of overspend, the out of the norm kind of stuff? I mean, some of the things that I did were on annual programs because that's where the best deal was to be had. But that, of course, is more money up front. So, there will be these moments where real life absolutely 100% is going to happen, and we will all be faced with it. So all of a sudden, here is a technique that we can all use as Profit First professionals with our clients to say, okay, yeah, of course, I can help sort it out for this year, but how about we do this going forward? again, it's just creating those layers of support, safety, value, ways of thinking about things, to give clients the support that they need at different moments in time.
Yeah, I love it. I thought it's a great idea. When you mentioned it and it came out of your mouth, it's another kind of eureka moment for me that our members have, our guides have, our experienced members have. We don't always have them ourselves, but we hear them and then we suddenly think that's a great idea, because we're in that world of thinking about these things from a different perspective. And suddenly these ideas just come to light, and then you get that light bulb and go, yeah, what a fabulous idea. So it's something I'm going to be doing, by the way. And there'll be a lot of people that listen to this, and some people will say, great idea, fantastic, really love that, but they won't actually do anything about it. Other people will listen to this, and it'll probably be a smaller number, and they'll actually think, do you know what, I'm going to do that, and they'll open up a pot. I would love in a year's time to hear from those people, if they've done that, to let us know what they bought from their Black Friday pot, and whether they spent all the money, whether they still had a buffer left and had some money left in it they could use elsewhere. And that takes us into our next kind of profit first tip. As I actually mentioned the word buffer. Now, a buffer for any profit first pot can be useful, can be helpful, can provide a feeling of reassurance to the business owner sometimes, but also the buffer can be too big or it can be too small. So what's your take on buffers, and where would you use a buffer in the profit first methodology?
So I think for me, it's a client dependent discussion for me. I think there are some core ideas which come out, which are readily explained in the book. Those ideas of 3 months of owner's pay, make it 6 months, make it years worth of owner's pay. That's part of a longer term piece of intentional planning. I think, I have a client where we use 3 different types of buffer actually. We have a buffer account for wages, for which the aim is to build up a month, and they run a payroll that's about 100,000 a month. So the idea is that over a period of time, they build up a month of buffer outside of what they would normally do. We allocate and they run a surplus in their regular wages account as a very specific account that we run anyway. But just the idea, they are building that sum of money in the background. So that's one. Second is an OPEX buffer. Again, very intentional. Despite the size of their payroll, they're actually pretty lean as a business. So for that, the target is much more sort of 2 to 3 months of buffer. And then we have one other pot, which doesn't have a specific sort of top end idea amount to it or a target amount to it. That they have one client who is a large part of their revenue. And we actually allocate money just to say, what if anything happens with them? Now, the reality is, if they lost them as a client, the business looks totally different 24 hours from now, and very different decisions would need to be made. But they're an organization who typically may not make payments throughout the month of December. They kind of get into that Christmas protection mode, and it's, we don't make payments in December. You've got to wait till January. Well, if you're carrying 100,000 a month payroll, that becomes a bit awkward periodically. So we have a very intentional buffer, and that just basically grows and grows and grows and grows. And it's a very small amount. It's 1-2% every time we allocate, but it just builds up in the background. Now, as it happens, in the last probably 6 to 8 weeks, I would say, they have actually had a very real problem way out of their control to deal with, which was all to do with the US government shutdown. That meant that this particular organization did not have funds coming through, weren't able to make payments. And so actually this buffer did get used. It didn't cover the whole amount, but we used some from the wages thing to cover wages bill and so on. So sort of right now, within the last month or so, those 3 buffer accounts have absolutely come into their own. I'll say nobody could see it coming as a set of circumstances, and it's definitely not a set of circumstances that would apply to the majority of businesses in the UK, necessarily being sort of subject to that kind of problem. But it just goes to show you don't necessarily know what is coming up in the future. And people might think about the pandemic as being very obvious, but that's like such a big national issue rather than a company individual company issue, let's say. You don't know what you will need the money for, but what it did allow us to do was plan our way through how that money was going to get used. We kind of had backstop moments in time of, okay, well, if we do get some money through, where are the priorities in the spend? How do we cover those things off? You know, they're having some refurb work done. They've bought their own premises this year. So at the moment, they've got, you know, refurbishment bills, 5-figure sums coming through on a pretty regular basis at the moment. So, you know, they're under more sort of expense pressure than they would ordinarily be. And then this happened on top of that. But they were able to weather that storm. And I think it was the longest US government shutdown that they have on record. I think it was over 40 days in the end. So it was a protracted period of time. But the buffer accounts absolutely, well, they did a couple of things. Number one, it allowed them to make payroll without thinking about it at the end of October. Number two, business owner, yes, was concerned, but didn't get into a position of sleepless nights about it, you know, at that kind of level of stress, wondering what was going to happen. So it became a very methodical process, no emotion really attached to it. Here's the money. This is exactly the kind of thing that it was designed to be used for. How are we going to use it? Let's get intentional about that. What happens if it goes on for another 30 days? What if it's another 2 weeks? So we were basically building strategy on the basis of this money that had built up over time. So I think that in the context of, fine, that's my client, but we had other members on the call who were very actively using buffer accounts. Almost, I think for one member, it was almost like an absolute non-negotiable with her clients. No, you know, we will have a buffer account and you will get to 3 months of coverage, be that OPEX, owners pay, whatever it might be, as a very core part of the work that they do with their clients. And I think it is one of those elements. We don't know what's going to crop up and things are a bit more unpredictable these days. So yes, I think buffers and the whole idea that sits behind it, I think they're going to become more prevalent as we go into 2026 and beyond, just dealing with levels of uncertainty as much as anything. I mean, there's a whole economic discussion in the background of that as well, of course. You know, will people get paid on time? And, you know, how will these things work? Fine, they're regular commercial things, but it might just get a bit tighter and the cost might rise a little bit more. So the idea of working out how we can factor these things in, I think, is going to hold great value for clients who run that kind of system in the background.
I think as well, Jason, everything you've just shared of what you're doing with your client, it's not something that anybody can just read the book and apply. This has come from years of experience of working profit first with lots of different types of businesses, being in the money, being in the moment with the client, having regular conversations, being able to understand what the client's objectives are, what their outcomes they're looking to achieve, but also what potential problems might need solving, which is the buffer obviously is there as a fail-safe to prevent serious issues that can happen to a business, because we all live in the real world. As you've said, things happen outside of our control, but having some measures in place that mean we've got a buffer, that means actually we can deal with this. We need to move this money here. We need to move this money there. We can deal with it. Right, that's dealt with. How do we now start to build those buffers back up in case this thing happens again, or what's our next steps to take? These are conversations that we have on our calls with our members regularly. So our members are able to tap into this knowledge. And as you share this information with them, and we all share our collective experiences of situations we've had with clients, it massively helps our members that are newly certified in particular be able to proactively solve problems with their clients, you know, ahead of the game. These aren't things that you can learn from the book. So if you want to go beyond the book with Profit First, obviously being a Profit First professional is the place. You know, that's the place that you can learn and you can gain this knowledge from the community, because the community is really key, and the support from your peers within the community it's really grown this last year in particular, I feel, with the WhatsApp group, and that even today there's a couple of members arranging to jump on a call to support each other, because one's asking to solve a problem and someone's going to jump on a call with them. It's amazing when I see these things, how supportive each of our members are for each other. There's no competition. It's all a collective collaboration. because there's so much work for us to do for businesses with Profit First. And so I just wanted to highlight that. But I want to move on because we talked about some real strategic, technical Profit First, aspects of what we do with our clients and what our members are doing with their clients. But of course, what happens when people join us is they go through certification program, they become a certified Profit First professional. And then what we do is we encourage them within this post-certification course, the 11 o'clock course on a Monday, we encourage them to talk to clients. And when they're having conversations with those clients, we kind of encourage them to look out for certain triggers, for certain things that are said by their clients. So you've had quite a few conversations about this with our members recently. Is there anything that comes to light in respect of triggers that you can share with us as well?
Yeah, I think one of the things for me is it makes having a conversation with a client a really straightforward process, actually. The fact that I don't have a bookkeeping or accounting practice, so I'm going to kind of go with a royal we kind of discussion here, but we have all of this data from clients. It's in Xero, it's in QuickBooks, it's on spreadsheets, it's wherever it is. The question is, how do we actually use that? As much as we are keeping score a lot of the time, how do we help our clients start scoring those goals that go with that? And the trigger conversation makes for a really easy introduction, I think. If you think about it, it's like, okay, well, what have your cash balances been for the last year? What have your last four VAT returns look like? What can we glean from that allows me to provide you, the client, with a bit of insight and a bit of value to help us understand how we can better use cash in your business? So the VAT one, I think, is a terrific one, because I think generally people probably fall into two camps. They either don't save for the VAT, and the VAT bill is always a surprise and is always more than anyone ever wishes it was. Or people do save for VAT, but they save for it at 20%. Now, for me, I'm in a camp of going, okay, at least something is better than nothing for sure, but could we refine that a bit? What can we learn from your past VAT returns that would give us an indication we don't need to save at 20%? I understand there are different VAT schemes that would have different rates applied and all that kind of thing as well. But on that kind of very general basis, I'm looking to establish the idea, maybe someone really only needs 13, 14%. Maybe that's what it is. Because in my world, I want those extra percentage points in the business as working capital. We can do something with that to help the business grow. Is that vehicles? Is it people? Is it marketing budget? Is it paying the business owner more? These are all possibilities. But these levels of insight around some core compliance kind of ideas, personal tax returns, here we are, recording this at the beginning of December, personal tax returns, 31st of January, they're 8-9 weeks away. There's going to be the majority of people are going to be in a position, the money isn't set aside in a separate pot, so on and so forth. Okay, well, what can we do? What can we learn from this process? Have we asked a client how much they actually want to earn in this next financial year? Well, if they can give us some kind of inkling and we think that's reasonable, I use an online calculator for this, but it's just like, all I need is an idea. I would like to earn this much in the next year. That may or may not happen. They may go beyond. The business might not be able to afford that ultimately. But with that idea, I know there's a very simple bit of planning that we can put in place to get that money saved in advance. If they go beyond, the system, Profit First, and the framework will deal with that extra from a proportionate basis. If it's not quite enough, we'll adapt as we go through the year. But I think that there is a lot that we can do with that core data. And we talk about it as in a trigger kind of way because it tends to relate to a date, a moment in time that creates a specific trigger for that conversation. But, that could be month-end accounts, any and all of these sorts of things can present as very easy ways to start having a value-led conversation with a client. And that is probably, to be honest with you, that is probably a different type of conversation that our members have not been used to having, certainly not to a deep and core level with clients over a period of time. But I think it just helps with that, with this transition into advisory. What do we actually have available as resources to help us? we've got some data, we can produce some insights. Can we now think about that in a future focused way to lead us into a conversation, invite a client into that conversation with us? So triggers, I think it's a very basic strategy, but highly effective to start those conversations with clients from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, and I think that's the triggers from a proactive aspect of us reaching out to our clients for those reasons. But I think there's also a trigger in a conversation when you're having a conversation with a client, when perhaps, I remember, from my accountancy background, quite often a client would ring me up and ask a question about, look, I need to get a new van, I need to replace my van, am I best off getting the lease van? Am I best off going PCP? Should I buy it outright? Should I get a loan from the bank? But to me, fantastic. What a great opportunity to introduce Profit First into that conversation. So to me, that's a massive trigger. It's more of a reactive thing. So what you're talking about is the proactive way. And that is, of course, the Profit First way. And that's the way that we would encourage our members, because we want our members to be proactive with their clients and to be bringing up conversations with them, being the one, approaching the client quite often. But there is that other aspect that, you randomly pick up the phone because your client's calling, and suddenly there's an opportunity on that phone call because they're asking you for a piece of advice. And this is where it's really important that people understand what advisory is. Actually answering that question is a specific piece of advice that can help them from a tax perspective, depending on their circumstances, where they're at right now. How can we help answer this question in the right way? But it's also a great opportunity to turn that into, I've got a way of doing this for you. I've got a much better way of us handling this, this financial decision. If you want to have a chat with me properly, and we can see when do you actually need to replace the van? When is this date line going to happen? Because it might be that we can proactively put some money aside way ahead of that date and actually be ready to buy that van without going down a finance road. Whereas the finance aspect might be really important because they might need to get it straight away because the engine's blown on the current one. There's the different ways. It's just an example, but it's just taking me back to my days sat in my accountancy office, the phone ringing, and the client, quite often I got asked that question. So it always feels to me that that's a really good opportunity to then develop that conversation into something else and elaborate on how you can help your client from an advisory perspective, but also with Profit First behind you as a Profit First professional. It's a great opportunity for a more meaningful conversation on where you can guide them and help them specifically to achieve that particular outcome. And of course, all the other conversations you would have, the normal conversations, like you said, VATs, the money's not there, straight away trigger. You can have that conversation with them to solve that problem. Tax bills come in, haven't put any money away, trigger. All these things are just, they're right in front of us. And it's just a case of being able to look at your clients and understand. And I think that again then takes us into, so how do we look at our clients? So this is a big conversation we've been having over a period of time with many of our members. And we call it the 20-60-20, don't we? And we're talking about analysing our clients. So who is our top 20%? Who's our bottom 20%? And then by default, that means the middle 60% will be sat there. And a lot of people talk about analysing clients, and it seems to be, from outside of Profit First professionals, a one-off kind of thing. Whereas for us, it's an ongoing journey. So you've had quite a few conversations with a few different members recently about the 20-60-20 analysis. Is there anything you can share with us from the Monday sessions that would be helpful in this conversation?
Yeah, I think it is part of the general development of a bookkeeping or accounting practice as they start looking to the future. They've become a Profit First professional for a reason, to move into a different type of work at a higher value-led level. And I think part of that process then is it's trying to walk that tightrope, let's say, between the need to get clients on board when you start a business. True of any business, we need some money coming in, we need to get going, we need some stories to tell about the success that we have with clients. Absolutely 100%. But there then comes a point in time where different things come into play. Is it about capacity? Is it about the fact that you've actually got a long list of clients and you still don't seem to be able to earn enough money from that list of clients? It is interesting because I actually think back to one current member and one member who we had at a point in time. Current member, very short client list, 400,000-500,000 in revenue as an annual thing, but maybe 40 clients, versus someone who we had conversations with who was doing half of that revenue, but with about, I think it was about 150 to 200 clients. You know, it was absolute chalk and cheese between these two models. Funnily enough, a lot of clients, not enough revenue became a problem. Funnily enough, higher revenue, fewer clients, niche-based focus, and highly respected in this particular area of this niche. I'm not saying it's comfortable and easy for that member, but far more focused, knows exactly who his ideal client is, knows how to filter people out within that conversation as well, just as important. So I think it is this idea about how do we start to transition towards a better client base. I mean, define better any way you like, but you know, that idea that I don't have clients who drain me, I have clients who pay me on time, you know, all of those kind of things. So I think it's part of an appreciation that we don't all have to be operating at the lowest level all of the time. There are plenty of people who are capable of dealing with a volume of clients because of the way they operate in a certain way. I think the idea for people who are looking to get into high level practice advisory work, they tend to work out that some of those clients, the once a year tax return for a couple of £100, it's a drain, it's inconvenient, it's information gathering, it's getting responses, compared to working with clients who respond on time, are efficient, participate in the conversation. You know, it's like it is a different feeling to deal with clients in that way. So I think it's really important that with the 20-60-20, it's like realization is the first step. It's actually taking a cold, hard look at that client list and going, okay, this has got me as far as it has got me. Will it actually serve me into the future? Will it actually serve me in this business in the way that I would like it to as I grow my practice from here? So, I mean, there are two sides to this that we look at. One is the pure financial. How much do people pay me? That may well qualify them as a top 20 or a bottom 20 client. But then there's another secondary part, which is incredibly important, which is it's around the behavior and the characteristics that come with those clients. Who are the people who are easy to deal with? Who are the people who always run down the phone? Who are the people who always say, it's your fault my VAT return wasn't filed, when they haven't provided the information despite 23 reminders? You know, it's like there is a balance in this. So it's not just a pure, they pay me the most, they must be a great client. There are plenty of people who pay a lot of money who are awful clients. So our ability to start mapping these two things together and start interrogating that list of clients helps us start form opinions about, okay, well, the next discovery call I have with a client, are they presenting to the characteristics and the monetary values of a top 20 or a bottom 20, or do they fit somewhere in the middle? So we start to make some slightly more informed decisions rather than going, oh, good, pound signs, yes, I'll take another client on, which may actually just be causing more problems in the background about draining profit from the business. They might need extra resource to service a lot more poor clients. So I think it's a really important part of the process that we go through with members, but also it is forever ongoing, or it certainly should be. You know, if we think about it in a very clean way, if you remove the bottom 20% of the clients that you have today, clearly out of the middle 60%, there will be a new bottom 20%. So what do we do with that bottom 20%? Well, we just have to keep evolving and just basically keep moving the levels up as we go, which is an ongoing piece of work. And I think the other important part of it is nobody is encouraged to say, oh, bottom 27, right, I'm just going to fire those clients now. That is not how it works. There are economic realities for people, and it should be a transition, but an intentional transition rather than I'm cutting that out. Now I'm poor. Now I'm hustling. Now this doesn't feel good. This should be an intentional process to move from one level to another level over time and continue to repeat that process.
Absolutely. You don't want to remove the bread and butter of your business. You know, if that monthly recurring income's coming in, it's a strategic way of removing bottom clients and bringing in top clients. And I remember when I was implementing profit first in clients' businesses and bringing in, you know, starting to attract a better caliber of client, as I would call them. As I brought in one client on the profit first advisory sort of model, I would remove 3 bad clients, and I would still be more profitable. So there was a you know, a structure. I had like a structure of how I was going to do it, because there are some people do give some really bad advice around this, and they do tell people to remove the bottom 20% just like that. And then all of a sudden, you haven't got the money coming into the business. There's a reason why you're serving these customers in the first place, because the revenue is required. So it's a strategic way of doing it. It's a structure to follow. It's as with everything is with Profit First and with Profit First professionals, it's a step-by-step process. It's a bring 1 in, remove 3. Maybe that worked for me. That ratio might not be right for everybody, but it worked for me in my time going back a few years ago. And so if we're able to do that, or a ratio similar to that, it helps us evolve our business. It helps us bring the better clients in. It helps us recognize who are the better clients, helps us understand the bottom clients and who's on our hit list perhaps to remove, because the phone rang and it's so-and-so and I really don't want to talk to them again. Every time they ring, I feel like this. Therefore, surely that's someone you don't really want to be working with. So why are you? So find a way to bring someone better in to remove that person. Profit First gives you that way. Profit First Advisory is the way you can bring in high-level clients and remove these, unfortunately, clients that perhaps you don't really want to serve anymore. They've served their purpose for you. It sounds harsh, but you know they have to fit your model now. Your model needs to be what your model is to serve you, to make sure that you can grow your business in the right way. Because otherwise, you're going to always have these clients that you don't really want to serve, dragging you back down. Sucking the life out of you, you know, taking your energy away, which then puts you in a bad frame of mind to serve the clients you want to serve. So it's really important. I find this a really important aspect of what we do with our members. It's something we don't talk about enough. And there was another question that came up across these member calls over this period of time. One of our members asked about the difference between working with a startup business or an established business when it comes to implementing Profit First with them. And if I remember rightly, the answer to this question was, where do they fit in your 20-60-20? And I think that highlights the emphasis we put on this, because it was, hang on a minute, you don't just take on a client just because the client wants to work with you. You take on the client if they fit in the right space within your 20-60-20 analysis. If they're a client that you think is in your bottom 20, why would you work with them? You know, unless you specifically need that money right now, why would you do that? Why would you not think, actually, I can't serve you. I can serve you with this, this, and this, but I can't serve you with that.
I think one of the things for me about this, Tim, is it highlights
the best served to go and find another accountant, bookkeeper to serve you. It's just interesting, isn't it, to have a think about. Carry on.
Sorry, I think we just had a bit of lag there. So one of the things that I think this one of the things I think this also brings to bear is how we, for members who join who haven't been used to getting focused on the future, the reality is our clients' businesses are happening in the future. Like October's P&L, in the nicest possible way, means nothing now. We're a month beyond that. We're now about what's happening in December, January, and so on. And one of the things that I think you highlight there, actually, in that startup versus established client, where do they fit? When we were going through the call, one of the points that I made was the startup today may be small revenue, pre-revenue. The question is, how does that business see themselves in 12 months' time? And does that picture Does it sound authentic? Do you believe them when they say they're going to get 2, 6 figures, 7 figures, whatever the number might be for whatever the business is? Do they give you enough on that discovery call to give you the impression they really mean it? They are going to be highly intentional about what happens with this business. So consequently, we're moving our radar immediately from thinking, okay, this might not be a lot of revenue for me. It might be very compliance heavy at the moment. We can always layer in a bit of fundamental profit first principles from the beginning as well, of course, to just get people into a rhythm of doing some things like allocations, even at a very basic level. But understanding that if this client moves forward in the way they're telling us they intend to move forward, they will fit into being a top 20, middle 60 at least, and they won't be a bottom 20 client. So I think that this whole piece about this idea of like their business is happening in the future, we need to meet them there and actually start to interpret what we think is happening in this business, established or startup, to actually say, where do they fall? 20, 60, 20. Is this the right kind of client for me? Are they exhibiting the right characteristics? Do they have the right potential for me to get into a very value-led relationship with them in 6, 12, 18, 24 months' time? And this actually, I'm just going to dip back into what you were saying about the vans earlier on. That phone call from the client, I need a new van. So there is this moment where I think my expectation is a lot of people would go, oh yes, okay, this is the best way to do that, and put the phone down.
Yeah.
Rather than actually say, okay, so there's this one van, and here's the answer to the question you've actually asked. Do you think you might be getting more vans in the next 12 months? Should we be having a discussion about where your business is actually, if you need another van now, should we be having a bit of an update on where your business is actually moving to? So I'm thinking about that, because we could do some planning around that. So we might have to scrabble to get the money together for a deposit for this van. But if you're looking for the next van and the next van and the next van, we could put something in place that would mean you always have those deposits ready as and when it's the right time. And I think, again, it's like this idea that we are moving beyond the immediate question and answer. What's the follow-on question? What's the deeper question that's really being asked here? And how can we determine from that whether or not that guy says, no, I just need to replace my van and that's it. I still want to sit below the VAT threshold and, I'm quite happy there. Or is this someone who's going to answer the question by saying, well, as I see it, this is the first van. And I think that we're going to look to add a van every 6 months. Okay, different conversation afoot. So I think that, again, a lot of the skill, the triggers that we were talking about there, but how we start bringing a lot of these ideas together into things like 20-60-20 gives us a better ability to filter for better clients, ultimately. And let's face it, accountants, bookkeepers, we're running commercial businesses. We should want a better answer. We should want a practice to run that delivers a return for us as the owner. And the ways that we think about doing that and the strategies we use and some of the techniques and so on that come with that. One of the other things I'd just like to pick up on with the 20-60-20 piece, this idea of loss aversion. The idea that we are getting rid of some income that we have had for a period of time is a painful mental experience. But understanding that we are building a pipeline of better clients, and to use your example, one better advisory client meant you could release 3 and be no worse off at the very least, probably better off over time. So if we can get into a process where we understand that we are building that pipeline of more ideal clients, we get used to the idea it's safe to release these ones. Yes, I can release another one because we are following a very intentional path with that. Now, 2 members I'd just like to highlight quickly. One of them came to literally the call this week and asked her for an update because she's been very active in the WhatsApp group talking about some of these processes and what she's trying to accomplish. And she came back and she said, yes, I started with 4 clients who haven't paid me when they should have paid me. I've sent 4 emails out. I've kind of laid the land. It's sort of out in front of them. One of them has now paid in full. One of them sent a partial payment. One of them has acknowledged the email, and the 4th one hasn't responded yet. But an immediate response, and I think one of the things that comes out of this is it's taking people from that initial practice that they arrive with and moving them towards the dream of the practice that they want. and understanding there are a series of events that happen to make that so. The support that comes out on the back of that. We have another member who the week before was talking about she needed to have an awkward conversation because the original discussion with a new client had been on one premise, and it had become quite clear in the first month of working for them the workload was entirely different to what was anticipated. Awkward conversation. So we talked around this a little bit on the call, and then again in the WhatsApp group she was saying, okay, well, here we are, here's where I've got to with it, here's the email I've sent, here's the response that's come back, you know, how do you think I should respond next, and I feel like this about it, and so on. But the support that she got, I can't go and find replacement income for her directly, but as a guide on that call when she turns up, I want to help her find the conversational points that will find the client that replaces that. Lots of different ways people provide support, be that emotional support, be that technical, tactical support, be it dialing in on a specific one-to-one call that I have outstanding to do with that member specifically around this piece. So I think that there are a lot of these things that come together. It is not easy to release clients by choice. People leave us, fine, that happens. But for us to make that decision is quite often quite a difficult decision to make. But understanding we are with peers who are going through exactly the same ideas, the same principles, and we can provide support for each other, I think members get an immense amount out of that. You know, the next phase is 4 clients who aren't paying. She's now gone to the people who do her payroll. Who are the problem clients? Who never gets their information to you on time? Right, they're on a mini list. But I think this idea of these mini lists and sort of looking at different aspects of her practice now very much gets her to a point where she's now asked the staff, who are the problem clients? Who don't you like dealing with? Who never gives the information when you need it? Who always makes out it's your fault something hasn't been done? So they now have an internal process where her staff feel that they can talk to her about the problem clients and things that aren't getting done in an open way, you know, rather than thinking, oh God, you know, phone's ringing, it's that client again, you know, I'm going to get it in the ear again. No, there is a process now in place where they discuss that openly internally. Practice owner makes the decision, will they be a client for the longer term or not? Is there a conversation where I need to step in more actively than maybe I have done? And I think there are a lot of things that happen as people go through certification with us, where we start to lift the lid on the business that they have and show them there is a pathway to solve many of these problems which have probably been around, which have kind of maybe been ignored a little bit in the background. Or, you know, I'll deal with that tomorrow. No, it's okay, it'll be fine. No, actually, you're not paying yourself properly in your practice. Your OPEX is running away with itself. That's not fine. You know, we need to deal with these things, and that's just the same with, you know, dealing with clients as well. So I think there's a lot of these things that come together. But again, that small piece by piece approach, the incremental idea, 1% doesn't sound like much, but across 3 accounts for my client, those buffers grew over a period of time to a very, very useful level. You know, the way that this particular member is going through and approaching that 20-60-20 exercise with some different things, incremental approach, but very, very intentional about where her practice is going as a result. Immensely powerful.
I think you've just encapsulated so much about the support that our members receive being a Profit First professional, and also hopefully we've highlighted as well to the audience that when you become a Profit First professional, of course, first and foremost and core to everything we do is profit first, because we live and breathe by that mantra and by the strategies and methodologies. But there is so much more. There is so much more that we do with our members, because it's really important to us that our members' businesses themselves are successful, so that they can then help 100%. Their clients become successful. We talk quite a lot about what our members do with our clients, but first and foremost is our members. Our members are our priority before their clients. It's their clients after. So yeah, it's great to be able to share that with everybody. The only way you can be in this world and get this level of support with the Profit First professionals is to become a Profit First professional, go through the certification program, join the course, turn up on a Monday regularly throughout these sessions, and become a really important part of this community and gain this support. Give some support where you can, but there's no expectations on people to give support. The expectations are to receive support and be able to grow as a person and as your business, and to be able to become more profitable, be able to become more successful, be able to, stand up proud and be a profit first professional and share that with your clients. So if this is something that you are thinking you're interested in, if you head to the website profitfirstuk.co.uk, have a look around. But if you click on the wait list, fill out it's an expression of interest form that comes into the inbox. I'll reach out to you and we can jump on a call at a convenient time for you. You'll get the opportunity to put that call in, so it's what suits you best. And it'll just be a conversation about getting to know each other, where you're at with your business. Are you a good fit for Profit First Professionals right now? Are you not? And if that's not the case, the next best place to be is in the Profit First pathway, because what we do in the Profit First pathway is we share these little snippets, mini videos, mini recordings of me and Jason and sometimes Deb talking about the calls on a Monday, where we share the diary of a PFP in a little bit more detail. So the members get everything. The Profit First pathway gets some deeper knowledge and some deeper information about what's happened on that particular day. And then this podcast is to give you an overview of what goes on within our environment. So the best place to start, if you're not ready to be a Profit First professional, but you're interested in Profit First, is to join the Facebook group, the Profit First Pathway. Pop onto Facebook, type in the Profit First Pathway. You'll see a green and blue graphic with myself, Jason, and Deb's faces on. And you just answer 3 simple questions, agree to the rules, and you'll be accepted in. So come and join us, come and have a look and see what's going on in our world. Maybe it can become something integral to your world in the future too. But yeah, it's as always, Jason, it's an absolute pleasure chatting with you. We do this regularly on a Monday. We do this now as well through this podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've got anything you want to just kind of finish with for this podcast.
Yeah, I love Monday mornings. I think the variety that we actually go through with members, for those going through certification to those who are post-certified, some newer certified than others, and that will be part of our structuring going into the new year as well, perhaps. And then the things that come out within the community calls as well. Monday mornings for me are an absolute joy. So definitely none of that, oh, it's Monday, it's time to go to work kind of dread feeling. It's like, no, I really look forward to a Monday morning. And it would be great. I think the member stories that come out of that, it would be great to have new energy in the new year, new members, people who are looking to get their practice move forward in 2026 for sure, and at any point in 2026, to be perfectly honest. It is a different way of life. It is a different way of thinking. It is engaging. The community support is terrific, and that has definitely come on a bundle in 2025. And there's plenty more, I think, to be built on there for 2026 as well. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing more people on a Monday morning.
Absolutely. So there you have it. Mondays are the best working day of the week, because we never dread Mondays. Because once again, and we're Thank you for joining us on our podcast today. Profit First Beyond the Book was brought to you by the Profit First Professionals UK and Ireland team. If you'd like to find out more about Profit First or becoming a Profit First professional, head to our website, profitfirstuk.co.uk.